Anxiety. We live, and have always lived as humans, but particularly perhaps so now, in a force field of anxiety. Behind the material comforts of the world, and behind your daily expression of who you are, is a background hum of anxiety. An anxiety that, though out of your consciousness directly much of the time, comes to define in many ways who you are, how you behave, what you do, what needs you have. And on a grander scale, creates the psychodrama that we call, as we know it, the human experience. Anxiety is not fear per se. It's not fear, but it's not directly fear or even terror. Fear and terror are, in a sense, confrontations with anxiety. They can be helpful at times. Now, anxiety is something deeper, more penetrating, more, in a sense, you could say, sinister. Anxiety is ultimately the assumption by the mind that deep down one ultimately must be afraid of titanic forces about reality that one has no control over, and that it'd be best one not think about. We can look at a very obvious example of anxiety that I think is shared by most people on the planet: the fear of death and the anxiety over death. Anxiety in particular, even more than fear, because death in its essence presents a sort of logical impossibility. It's a unthinkable phenomenon, which causes not merely fear, but also a confusion and a mental discomfort that can only be described as anxiety. But beyond the fear of death are deeper anxieties. Because if the fear of death was the deepest anxiety, we wouldn't have suicides. Even death can be a solution to some of these other, more subterranean anxieties. Anxieties about fear of abandonment, fear of physical decay, and in the darkest and deepest places, the real root of anxiety, the fear and the belief, even, that you are not worthy of love, and its reverse mirror image that you are incapable of properly loving. And it is these anxieties which root their way deep into our neuronal structure early in life and form the ego of each individual and the ego of the culture at large. We joke and laugh and have come to accept anxiety. Of course I have anxiety. Who doesn't have anxiety about this or that? And we suppress anxieties, and we put anxieties to the side, or we don't think about anxieties. Or we talk to our therapists about our anxieties and how they are generating our neurotic behavior, and in some sense we can have some control over them. But there they remain. And we try to manage them. There is no secular solution to anxiety. There is no secular solution to anxiety. The only solution to anxiety is to know that it's a lie. That all anxiety is a lie. Because the truth is love. That is the solution to anxiety. That is the only solution to anxiety. Either that is the case, and the truth is love, and it is, or anxieties are justified. This is the horrible situation we find ourselves in. But it's not horrible at all, because truth is love. But once you realize this, you realize also that anxieties must be conquered. They must be brought from the background mechanisms of our brain to the forefront of our consciousness and directly destroyed. Through the will's assertion and the intellect's knowledge that there is nothing to fear and that it is love. Anxiety defines the state of fallen man. They bit the apple and they were afraid because they knew they were naked. The fundamental anxiety that grounds human self-consciousness is the terror of self-consciousness itself, which developmentally the human mind could just not avoid. It was just too much, and the human mind became self-conscious and terrified of it, and terrified that they were an isolated small thing in the world, a world that they could not control and that ultimately was out to get them and to kill them. And this is what the ego believes. It's also why the ego wants you dead, because it can't deal with its own fears. Even the fear of death itself, which sounds like it's contradictory, but it's really not. Anxiety must be overcome, and it can only be overcome through the knowledge that it is all love. Transform anxiety by pushing yourself to the limit of surrender to love, because these are your options. The world is anxiety writ large. This psychodrama is a anxiety machine that has been built around you to avoid the confrontation with the fears and the traumas and the horrors that aren't real, but they feel so real. There's no secular solution. Reality is perfect in love. And your anxieties are just your own inability to see it and believe it. That's what anxiety is. Overcome it. Become love. Laugh in the face of anxiety. Bring it out into the open. Face it in your consciousness, and then truly kill all anxiety. And you will destroy neuroses, and you will destroy fear. Jesus Christ, though he feared in the Garden of Gethsemane and sweat blood, he was not anxious. There was no anxiety in Christ, and there should be no anxiety in you. Destroy it, because it is a lie. He is a liar and the father of all lies. The truth is love. Anxiety is a lie. God bless.